Hey, good morning. Welcome to Northridge. My name is Robbie Latham. I'm the family student pastor at this campus, so this isn't my normal job on a Sunday morning. Now, if you were here last week for the first time, that might sound a little weird because I know I spoke last week, but I promise, after this, I'm probably done for a little while. But let's get to it because honestly, today I've got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do, and I found out this morning I don't have as much time as I thought I had. So we've got some things to get into, so let's just get right at it. And can we all just agree together, and I know I've got some Christmas lovers in the room, but can we just agree together that Christmas is like the worst holiday ever? Like anybody in here in the room with me that Christmas just is like, okay, thank you, the honest ones, yes, thank you. Because let's just be real, like Christmas is supposed to be this time that's like full of joy and happiness and peace and love and goodwill towards men. But that's not what it is. That's not what we do in our culture. That's not how we treat Christmas. Christmas is ridiculous. Like this week alone, I think I've got 5 different parties that I'm supposed to go to, which means I have 5 different parties to buy presents for, and that doesn't include the one last night when we had to drive to Knoxville. So there's just this busyness to Christmas that just makes it ridiculous, and it adds to this stress. And so there's not this peace, there's not this like love and goodwill, but we get so busy, we get so caught up in, okay, I got to do this and go here and do that and do this and be with this side of the family and this side of the family and go and buy presents for these friends. And can we just talk about presents for a second? All right, I'm going to be real honest with you, okay? My wife and I, we make a budget, okay? We do. We try to be responsible with our money. December is the worst for our budget because we're like halfway through it and we spent half our budget on presents, and I'm like, where did all the money go? And she's like, well, you wouldn't stop spending it on people. Because I have this really bad habit around Christmas of I'll walk through a store and I'm like, oh, I wasn't even planning on buying a gift for that person, but they would love this $50 thing, so I'll pick it up and get it for them, and that'll be their Christmas present. And so I spend a lot of money on Christmas, and I don't want to make it sound worse than it is for us because we do have the money. I mean, we can afford that, but for some people, the financial burden of Christmas is real. I mean, for some of the people in this room, the fact that you have to spend some of your money, that there's this expectation that you spend your money for Christmas and pay hundreds of dollars and buy gifts is going to have a financial impact on you for months, maybe even all the way into the next year as you've swiped a credit card over and over. And even if we can afford it, there's this stress, there's this anxiety that comes along with just knowing that you've spent more money than you meant to, right? Like you budgeted $200 for Christmas and now you've spent $300, and so I do this, I kind of am like, okay, now how's that going to affect, making this payment or buying that this month? And so reorganizing your finances just to have money to spend on Christmas can make this holiday really stressful. So it's busy, right? It's busy. It costs a lot of money. And then for some people, spending time with your family is not something that you would choose to do on your Christmas vacation. All right? Now, some of you love family. Like, I like to spend time with my family and my wife's family. Fortunate to have good in-laws. But for some people, that's just not true. And maybe that's especially not true this year, because maybe this is the first Christmas since somebody that you loved dearly has passed away. And so this is going to be the first Christmas that you have to spend with your family, and it's just going to reopen some of those wounds for you. Or maybe through this year, your family has suffered some sort of split. There's been some separation or an argument with a brother or sister, and so that family member is not going to be at the table this Christmas. And so as you gather as a family, it's not just stress and anxiety, but real heartache that you can experience in this holiday season. As we come together to celebrate Christmas, it is a time that can be full of joy. It is a time that can be good, where we can experience and remember the love of Christ. But I know that there are people in this room who this holiday stirs up a lot of anxiety and stirs up a lot of stress and brings back a lot of heartache. So before we get into yay Christmas, okay, before we get into Christmas is the best holiday ever and this is what we can remember, I do want to spend some time just praying for those things, for the distractions that come along with Christmas, and the real hurt that can come along with this holiday. So if we can, please pray with me before we really get going. God, I know that this holiday can be good. God, it's true. Christmas for us does change everything. But God, before we get into that, before we start reading your word and really diving into what Christmas means for us, God, I just pray that if there's stress, if there's worry in this room, God, if there's heartache in this room, Holy Spirit, I pray for the next 15 minutes or so that you would lift that. God, that you would take away whatever we brought into this place this morning, whatever we expect to come out of the next week or so. God, I pray that you would lift that from our minds. God, lift that hurt from our hearts. God, for the next 15 minutes so that we can focus on you. God, I pray that you would focus our hearts, focus our minds on you and your word, because God, I know that brings healing. God, I know as we draw closer to you, you heal our hearts. So God, I pray that you do that in this room this morning. Open our eyes and open our ears so that we may see and hear you clearly. In Christ's name. Amen. So I think part of what makes Christmas, and when I say Christmas is the worst holiday, here's what I really mean. I mean that in comparison to what it can be, what Christmas can be for us, it pales in comparison. What we actually do with Christmas is nothing in comparison to what it can be and what we really can celebrate in this holiday. And I think part of the reason for that is that we underestimate the importance of Christmas. Like if I were to ask you, if we were to go around the room and I were to say, what's the true meaning of Christmas? I think we would get a lot of good answers. I think we would get some answers that are a little bit off, but I think we would get a lot of good answers, like it's about Jesus, or it's about remembering those less fortunate, or it's about remembering the birth of Christ. And while some of our answers may be good, I think our ideas of Christmas tend to fall short of what God's idea of Christmas really was. And so here's what we all know, right? Here's what we all know and can agree on about Christmas. On Christmas night, Jesus, as our bumper video said, Jesus was always with God in heaven. Things were created through Jesus. He made the earth. He made mankind. He created everything. Through Christ, everything was created, and he was seated in heaven in the throne room of God, served by angels, worshipped by angels. They were at his beck and call. He was almighty, all-powerful, eternal. But then on Christmas night, what was all-powerful became one of the weakest things that we know. He who was once seated in the throne room of heaven was now held in the arms of his teenage mother. He who was once served and worshipped by angels now had shepherds bow before him and wise men bring him gifts. He who was in heaven was born into a filthy manger with dirty animals and dirty hay. See, we agree that that's what happened. And I think that hits us, to realize that that's what Jesus did. And here's my argument, here's what I would say, because of what I know about Jesus, is that he experienced that fully. Even as a baby, Jesus was fully aware of the transition that just happened. He knew that what was once eternal had now become flesh and bone. And he knew that the air that he created and designed our bodies to need, he took his first breath and knew what had just happened. And we know what happened. but I don't think we understand why. Or if we do, I think in this season, I think as we celebrate this holiday, I think we lose focus of why. And so that's what I'd like to do in the rest of our time together. I'd like to just remember why. I'd like to talk about why did Jesus come? Why did this have to happen? Why did he come as a baby? And then what that means for us and what that can do for us as we move into Christmas. So if you want to, and it's going to be up on the screens on either side of me, but we're going to be in Hebrews chapter 2 this morning. So if you got your phone or you got a Bible with you, you can go ahead and turn there. But like I said, it will be on the screen. We're going to be in verses 14 through 17. And just a side note as you turn there, if you want to read a book, if you want to know more about who Jesus is, Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, does a really good job of explaining who Jesus is and why he came to earth. And so that's why I've chosen it this morning, if you expected me to be in like Matthew or Mark or one of the Gospels. So Hebrews chapter 2. So this helps us answer the question, why? Why did Jesus come? Since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. For surely it's not angels that he helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason, to save us, to save us from slavery, to free us. For this reason, he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make an atonement for the sins of the people. So what I think we see in Hebrews, and I've got a few points that I want to make out of this text, but what I think we see first is that Christmas is the beginning of God's plan of salvation, at least as far as that plan plays out in the person of Jesus Christ. And here's what I mean. Because if you've talked to me at all over the past couple months or so, I've probably said something to you like, I don't like Christmas. We really should focus on Easter. I mean, isn't Easter the point? That's when Jesus died. That's when he was resurrected. That's when we see the ascension. So isn't that the point? Isn't that the whole point of Jesus coming is Easter? But what I've learned over the past few weeks, what I've really kind of sucked in over the past few weeks is that we can't really compare the two because they both matter. You see, without Christmas, Easter doesn't matter. And what do I mean by that? Well, we see in Hebrews that he shared in our humanity so that by his death he might break the power, that he might free us. So Jesus had to be made like man and came and was made a man for the whole purpose of us being redeemed. Because you see, here's how that all plays out. Because if Jesus was a mere mortal, if a mere mortal person, human, died on the cross, then the sacrifice was not sufficient for us. See, God had to become a man so that a human could die, so that the human could meet the requirement of the wrath and the justice of God. But God indwelled that body. God became man so that the sacrifice was not only for mankind, but sufficient for all of mankind. See, Jesus came as a baby to die for you. Jesus came as a baby, became like us for the whole purpose of freeing you and atoning for your sins. That's what we see happen on Christmas. You see, Christmas is the beginning of God's plan of salvation for you. The second thing we see on Christmas, and this is just kind of cool, I don't know if it'll really help you at all, but I thought it was cool. Christmas is the first time we see the creator-creation divide broken. I'll explain that after I take a drink of water. So Christmas, here's how I wrote it. Christmas broke the creator-creation divide. We see in Jesus God being joined with humanity. What was divine, what was infinite, what was all-powerful became like a man. Joined himself with creation. See, there was this argument that came up in the early church that Jesus, the body of Jesus, was born through Mary, and as the body was born, God stepped into that body like we would maybe think that a driver gets into a car. And so the body of Jesus, some people thought, was the car. And so God stepped into that body and had control over it and was able to determine its direction and the things that it did. But that's not what we see played out in the Bible. Rather, we see in the Bible that at the point of conception, Jesus was conceived by the Holy Spirit so that God and creation were joined together in one person. God and creation are joined together at Christmas. We see that in Jesus. And here's why I think that that's cool, is that Jesus shows us later in John that union with God, that type of union, that type of unity with God is his hope for mankind. In John, he says, "My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message." He's talking about his apostles. "That all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us." May they also be in us. That's what Jesus' hope for you was. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about the fact that Jesus doesn't want to just have a relationship with you? And we say that sometimes. We say, oh, well, Jesus wants a relationship with you. No, Jesus wants to be united with you. He wants to become one with you. He wants you to be in the Father. Just as Jesus and the Father are one, so he has invited us into that relationship. John Calvin would say it this way: "For we await salvation from him, not because he appears to us far off, but because he makes us engrafted into his body, participants not only in all of his benefits, but also in himself." See, what we get is not just salvation. We don't just get grace given to us. We don't just get mercy given to us, but rather what Jesus does for us is he draws us into himself, unites us with himself and the Father, and as we are united with Christ, then he saves us. We receive salvation as we are united with Jesus. And so Christmas reminds us that we celebrate someone, not just something. See, at Easter, we talk about redemption. We talk about the sacrifice of Jesus, and we talk about salvation and grace and mercy given to us. And all those things are true. We do get that. All of that is a gift, but Christmas reminds us that that is someone. Through getting Jesus, we get the rest of it. And isn't that enough? Isn't getting Jesus enough? How awesome is that? Jesus would encourage his disciples when he gives the Great Commission. He tells them to go through all the world and make disciples. And he says, "Surely I am with you always." Surely you are in me and I am in you always, even to the end of the age. Always we are now made one with Christ. And while we don't experience that fully this side of glory, this side of heaven, we can rest in that fact now. We can rest in that fact as we go back to work tomorrow, as we go through the mundane tasks of a Monday. We can know that Jesus is with us. He is in us and we are in him. As we go and we do Christmas this week, we can remember that we are in Christ, and Christ is in us, sharing in our burdens and our struggles. His strength is our strength. John Piper would say it this way: "Surely I am with you always. And that means right now. Right now, Jesus is with you. Doesn't that take the stress off? Doesn't that take some of the weight of this life off of your shoulders, just to know that right now and every moment forevermore, Jesus is with you. He sees your hurt. He sees your pain. He came as a baby and felt the weakness of humanity. And now as he's glorified, he has united himself with you. Let's pray. Holy Spirit, may you make us sensitive to that truth. As we go through this Christmas holiday, as we go into the next few weeks, as we go home today, God, for those of us who have chosen to follow Jesus, for those of us who have said, "You're Lord of my life," God, may we become all the more aware that you are with us. God, that you have made, even in our own bodies, God, you have made creator and creation one. God, and that can change everything. That takes away the burdens of this holiday and the burdens and the stress of work, and that can take away our desire to sin, God, as we realize that you're in the room with us, God, that we would find encouragement in that. God, I know that you're with your people. May you soften our hearts to that fact. May we see that more clearly. May we experience you.